Okay, this video is going to be on the basics of CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And what I have here is just a simple text document that has no formatting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this text and I'm going to format it in Dreamweaver using style sheets or cascading style sheets. So I'm just going to select all this text and I'm going to go edit, copy. I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to close it and I'm going to go into Dreamweaver in design mode. Okay, so I'm up here and I'm in design and I'm going to go back to split. I'm going to click right here and I'm going to paste. Now this is just unformatted text. And if you look in code view, currently all the text has paragraph tags. So if I go through here, I can see all the text has paragraph tags, and I'm going to change some of those. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my properties panel. So I'm going to go Window, Properties, and I'm going to put some basic HTML formatting to override these paragraph tags. So if I look at all the text, I can see that Great Cats is actually a heading or a title. So in the property panel, I'm going to choose H1 for that. Then I'm going to choose H2 for Lions Enjoy First Snow because that's a subhead. So I'm going to do an H2. I'm going to scroll down. Tiger Cubs, that's going to be an H2 as well. Okay. Meet the Great Cats. I'm going to do that as well. I will give that, it looks like this is supposed to be a list, so I'm going to make that an H3. And the bottom is an address, and I'm going to leave that as it is right now. Now what I want to do is I'm going to move this out of the way slightly. I want to make tigers, lions, leopards, and cheetahs, and fishing cats a list, so I'm going to select them all. And in the property panel, I'm going to apply an unordered list to those. Next, what I want to do is I want to save this document because right now it's untitled. So I'm going to go File, Save. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, to my Art116 folder, to my named folder or root folder, and I'm going to call this Basic CSS Demo and save that file. Now, what I would like to do is overwrite the default settings for H1s, H2s, and H3s. By the way, if you click in Design View, at the bottom, okay, you can see the tag that was applied. So I selected Meet the Great Cats, and I can see the H3 down here. If I select over Tiger Cubs and look down here, I can see that I applied the H2, and same thing for Great Cats. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a style sheet. To do that, I'm going to go File, New. From the New Document dialog box, I'm going to pick CSS, and I'm going to create it. Okay, right now it's empty. I'm going to save this file. So I'm going to go File, Save. I'm going to navigate to my Art116 folder, Desktop, Art116, my name folder, and I actually want to save all my CSS documents in a CSS folder. So I'm going to come down here where it says New Folder and create a new folder, and I'm going to call it CSS and create. Now I'm going to save this untitled document, okay, with a new name, and I'm just going to call it Big Cats Styles, and I'm going to save. Now I want both of these files to communicate with each other because eventually I'm going to have code, formatting code in my CSS document. But right now they're not communicating, so I'm going to link them together, and I'm going to do that using the CSS Designer panel. To get that panel open, you go Window, CSS Designer. Okay, here it is. Typically, you're going to see this panel like this. Okay, it might be docked over here to the right, but what I want you to do is actually expand it so you see properties on one side by itself. Now what I could do with this panel, I'm going to click on the plus here where it says Add CSS Source. I'm going to click and I'm going to attach existing CSS file. Now, that is going to attach this one. It exists because I just created it. So I'm going to attach existing. I'm going to navigate to where I saved it. So I'm going to attach existing. I'm going to browse to it. Okay. I'm in my Art 116 folder, my name folder. I'm going to go into my CSS folder and open the file that I just created and open it. I'm going to say OK because I want to link it and say OK. Now it shows up in my CSS panel and it has been linked. I can tell it's been linked if I go into code view. Let me move this out of the way. If I go to code view, this line of code was just created. It says link, href, my CSS folder, and this is the name of my style sheet. Okay, so I can tell that it's been linked. Dreamweaver did that for me. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to overwrite the default settings for the H1. Again, if I select it here, I can see where it is in code. To do that, again, I'm going to select it. Dreamweaver will help you if you actually select what you want to format. So I've got it selected. If I come down to selectors and add a selector, tags are considered selectors. If I click on the plus, Dreamweaver does its best to pick up what I want to format. And what happened here, it gave me the body tag, which is basically the parent of the H1. I actually don't need body. I just need the H1, so I'm going to get rid of that. Again, Dreamweaver tries to help you out, and sometimes it gives you a little bit more than you need. I want the H1. The H1 is formatting the cat text, the great cat text, so I'm going to look over to the properties now. Make sure that show set is not clicked on. I think it's clicked on but by default, so get rid of that, and you're going to see all the properties I can apply to my H1 to overwrite the default. By the way, this is just one big slider here, and you can actually navigate to the categories by clicking these areas. And basically what's happening is it's just sliding the slider down. And I want to be in text. You have layout, text, border, background, and then you have more. I want text. Okay? So now I'm in text and I can change the color. So I can click on the color chip here and I can pick a color. And I'll just do red since it's going to show up easy. To get this color palette out of the way, I'm just going to hit my return key. Now if I go back to my document, I can see that what Dreamweaver did, it found everything that has the H1 tag applied, and it made that text red because I chose red here. I could change the font family, and you see here different fonts you can use. You also see font stacks. Font stacks basically means it's going to look for the first font, like Impact. If it doesn't find that one on your system, it'll go to the next one, and next one. These are referred to as font stacks. I'll go ahead and pick Impact, and I can see that the font has changed. I could select a style. I could make it normal, which is the default, so I'm really not changing it. I could make it italic, which I really don't want to do. I'll put it back to normal. I could do oblique. I'll take it back. I could do a font variant, small caps, if I wanted to. It's all caps anyway because basically Impact is a typeface that has all caps only. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to hit the trash can to remove that. I could add an additional weight to it. I could do a font size in pixels. You've got some other unit of measurements here, but we're going to stick with pixels. And this is a slider. I could slide it up to make it bigger. Okay, line height won't apply because I'm not dealing with paragraphs right now. I could change the alignment. Okay, if I did that, it actually moved it to the middle. I'm going to take it back to left alignment, and I'm going to stay away from the text decorations at this point. Okay, so that'll be it for my H1. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my H2. So I'm going to select Lions and Joy. Again, I've got the H2 because I selected. I'm going to create a new selector for the H2. Picked up body. I don't really need the body, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go to the category for type, and I'll change the color to, I'll do blue, just so it stands out. I'm going to hit my return key to sit that in place. Now it formatted everything that had the H2 applied to it. So I applied the H2 to this line and this line. I'll go ahead and change the font family. This time I'll pick Gill Sans. I can see that it's been applied. I will change the font size to pixels, and I'll pop it up to 20. Okay. I'll do the H3. I can see it's the H3. I can also see it's the H3 here. I'm going to add a new selector for that. Again, I really don't need body, so I'm going to delete that part. And I just want the H3. I'll go to the type settings. I'm going to change the color. I'll do green. Maybe a darker green. Okay. Changed it right here. I'll change the font family to Gill Sans again. And I could change, again, I could change any of these, but I'm going to just do font size. And I'll make it 18. There we go. All right, if I wanted to make a change to any of these, all I need to do is go back to these, and I could come up here and make changes. Maybe I want to make this purple instead. If I scroll up in my document, it's now changed purple. And what's happening when I'm using this panel, if I go to my CSS document, I can see all the code has been created. I'm going to flip back to my HTML document. By the way, you can always see your CSS file if you click here as well. So if I close this document and saved it, if I go back to my file, I can still see that code here. It gives you a preview of the code, and I'm going to click back to my source code. Okay, so this is my source code, this is my HTML. If I click here, I can see my CSS as well. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the spaces in between the lines here of this code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click before I'm down here, hit my return key, then I'm going to hit Shift Return to bring those lines together. That turned the code from a paragraph to a break row. I'm going to do the same thing here. My cursor is right before the 3. I'm going to hit my delete key and do Shift Return. I'll do that one more time for Washington, D.C. I'm going to hit the delete key and hit space return. Okay. Now I'm going to do the paragraphs. I'm going to create a selector for the paragraph. So I'm going to just put my cursor in a paragraph. Okay. If I go down here to selectors, by the way, you're not going to need to worry about media at this point. So I'm going to click on the plus. Okay. It gave me body and P, but I only want the P tag. And I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to the type settings. I'm going to, maybe I'll make my type dark blue. I'm going to go into the blues, the dark blues, and I'm going to hit the return key. All the text has changed colors now. I'm going to go into font family. I'm going to pick Gill Sans. Changed it here. Now I could actually do line height, the space in between the lines. And normally what I do is, actually let me change the font size first. I'm going to pick pixels, and maybe I'll do 14. Now I'm going to change the line height, pixels, and I'm going to increase the line height from 0 to 21. If I can increase it more, you're going to see that the lines are spacing out. I'll leave that as is. Again, when I'm doing something over in the CS Designer, it goes and puts the code for those tags right in the CSS file.